right now we're rendering Light Castle mainly because there's a Dark Souls 2 lighting engine feature that got added like a week ago or 2 weeks ago. I tend to forget. But it is, as you can see on this wall here, it is of course using parallax occlusion mapping to basically make it look like there's depth in between the crevices on these bricks. Maybe a little bit too much. Probably need to alter my height map a little bit, but what you'll notice is that there's shadowing from the bonfire into those crevices that are actually only made by parallax occlusion mapping. So it is not the actual model. That's not how the wall is completely flat. So basically, that's a new feature to the most recent beta builds that you can grab for DS2 Lighting Engine, which is in the description. Once again, not by me. I've had people say, "Oh my God, your work on DS2 Lighting Engine is great." And I'm like, "Oh, that's not me." I'm flattered, but the actual DS2 Lighting Engine I do not make at all. I put in like reporting of bugs and whatnot, but that's, you know, and like feature related stuff, but I don't develop it at all. And yeah, so there's a Discord link to the DS2 Lighting Engine Discord, and yeah, you can go there and download the most recent build or report issues. But my mod, Second Sin, does require that, the most recent version. So Palm Shadows, or parallax occlusion mapping shadows, is just one of the new features that have been adding, and this is to local lighting and sun lighting. So I have posted a new version of Second Sin, I believe yesterday, and it includes reworkings of a lot of areas. It includes better indirect lighting. I figured out a better way of doing that. The other thing I recommend while we're here, this is a personal preference thing, but here under shading, quality, and performance, under user settings, you can set how much image sharpening you would like. I usually rode with about 25, which is a percentage. And recently I moved it up to 35 because that matches a little bit better the FromSoft aesthetic, which the FromSoft tends to like a sharper image. So make sure in your DS2 lighting engine you go in here and basically move the sharpening to what you would prefer, lower or higher. But I find 35 to be a really good number. And you can see all my other settings here are still max for shadow quality, soft shadows, screen space shadows, all that stuff. And yeah, so that's easy peasy lemon squeezy. You can also see another new feature that was within the last week is the addition of, because right now, of course, we have right here, you can see DLSS, SMAA, FSR. So of course I use DLSS. And then you have quality, balanced, ultra quality, DLAA. And then you can actually pick your render preset, which here we need to add render preset K, but you can also set that in your registry as well if you wanted to automatically use the most recent. But the addition of MSAA, which is an anti-aliasing method that doesn't get used as often anymore as it used to be used a long time ago. It's obviously a fantastic form of anti-aliasing, but I think it was always seen as expensive. And anyway, it's been optimized to the point where you can actually enable it. So let me disable it. And you'll see I'm still running DLSS, and then MSAA can be applied on top. And you can see it really handles the grass better than what DLSS can by default. Let's see, what else do we notice? Now, there are still some issues. Like I believe you can see around these thin objects. MSAA still has a little bit of, creates like a little bit of a halo around it. So that is a known issue. Apparently there was a lot of reworking of the rendering setup for DS2 Lighting Engine to have MSAA work, and that exposed a lot of other issues. And so there's been a lot of overhauling going on in the background that is highly beneficial. Now, the other thing I've been doing is adjusting the grass that I'm adding. You'll notice by default I added a crap ton of really tall grass, which I like. I think Majula looks beautiful with all the grass. It's not going to be for everyone, but I'm still tweaking it. I'm getting rid of some of the larger grass. I've got better about adding shorter grass. And basically how I add that is you go into editor mode for DS2 Lighting Engine, which of course gives you access to a free cam, which is very fun to play around with. Whoa. And then you can hit F, and it's actually the object placement tool. And here I've created these different brushes based upon different meshes some that were pre-existing in DS2 Lighting Engine, like certain trees, certain grass meshes. I've made new ones based on existing assets, like things betwixt, certain shrubs in shaded woods, Lost Bastille. I've added grass there. I've added grass to most of the areas, but not everything yet. But basically you can pick I made this brush, which is it's actually Forest of the Fallen Giants grass. And what it does is actually you can set here the scaling. So 1.0 is the default size of that mesh. But then you can actually, on each axis, you can have a minimum and maximum value. And the placement tool will basically decide. So here you can see some grass. Basically, I look at the texture itself, the blend textures, and I understand here's where the grass is being communicated, right? But of course, it was not actually rendered grass, it was just a texture, because of course that's much cheaper. And so they did have dynamic grass in certain areas, but there were plenty of areas where they did not. So let's look over here. Yes, this little patch is the perfect example. So let's snap the game camera, and we have our little placement tool, and basically you can see here align to terrain, slope, randomize orientation, so that you can rotate it. It automatically handles this, and then by default there's shadow casting, and you can see I have placed grass. And so you want to place a good number of them, but I try to be careful to not place them to where they're floating, which has been an issue. And so I tend to look at the textures itself and go, now here we're going to set the lower bound for the height of the grass to 0.2, and then we're going to raise the maximum height to 0.35, and it will then go in between those and alternate to make a more realistic looking grass, where some things are higher, some things are shorter. And so I try to place the grass where the grass texture is, and then leave the mud style texture a little bit less touched. And you do want to duplicate on top. You get a little bit of a thicker grass. And this is all, work in progress, obviously. I tend to go back and then select grass that I've added and delete some of it because I don't like how it looks anymore. As that's the ultimate advice I'd have for anyone with modding, is you just need to start doing, and you will get better at it. You simply will. And so I'm just getting what I feel like is better at the placement of grass, but I'm also placing rocks, trees. You'll see all these trees up here are new. We have new rocks, grass. We have more trees up here, grass, trees. I'm just going to say that word 500 times, but essentially it's just more detail and filling in what was already there, but just intelligently, I guess. And I think my favorite part of it is that I'm still using the base assets. This is all grass that existed in the game. I am just using it to a vastly higher degree than before. And you can see I'm also adding grass underneath the long grass to sort of, once again, make it a little bit more realistic. And the funny thing is, you might be wondering, how many bushels of grass have I added? How much extra geometry? Now, of course, you can see the grass is not like they are flat, so obviously it's not rendering a very complex polygon, but obviously whenever you multiply this by an entire scene of all this grass, you can actually see each game object gets when they add it, it goes up one a number. And so I've gone up to 9,449 game objects in Majula, and I still get 60 FPS, 1440p, max settings, DLSS quality. If I go back down to DLAA now, I do tend to drop to like 50 FPS. So my mod is certainly heavier than presumably other mods, because I am adding a crap ton of grass and dynamic shadows. The other thing I've been doing is energy conservation on the textures themselves. This is thanks to Trivia, which actually, let's travel to somewhere else. Trivia was telling me basically the albedo textures of surfaces. If you do energy conservation on those, where you can bring them into Photoshop and select the texture. So like for instance, if we went to our editor mode, and then we opened our game map editor, game map object, game map editor, and then we select this surface here, we will then go under the textures, and then I will go into my texture override folder. And basically what you do is you search for the fingerprint name, fingerprint number, essentially, identifier. So you'll see for the albedo map here, it is H626127, and it's going to search, and then it will have found this texture, which now we open up in Photoshop, which I think Photoshop is not currently open. Yep, there we go. It's been long enough. It died. And we bring it up in Photoshop. I've already done it, but here is how you would do it. So, of course, my alpha channel is my roughness map, which, so what is shiny, what is not shiny. I've already made that, but the specific color map portion, the red, green, and blue, you basically go into levels, and then the number we're looking for is actually 199. The default is 255, which is the max of that scale. And so you basically, the output levels, you just crunch it a little bit. And what that does is it lets for the best material response. And it also allows the specular to breathe a little bit more, which in this case would be the roughness map. But there also can be spec maps on things. And I want to get to an area where I have not done that. Now, I made a mistake on stream where I went into New Game Plus after finishing the 3 DLCs and the base game and all that. And then I realized, I don't have a character who can go to the DLCs anymore. So that's why this character, I'm like, oh crap, I need to go through Drangleic Castle. I goofed up. Let's go to the gutter, because I don't think I have done energy conservation on those textures. I don't think so. I could be wrong. I think I did do it on that. So yeah, this hanging piece of, it's a pig? I think it's a pig. Let's go pull up our game map editor. You can also notice with the highlighting of objects now in Dark Souls 2 lighting engine, because of reworkings of the rendering setup, the SSGI, which is the global illumination or screen space global illumination, is now affecting the entire scene. And so even the highlighting of objects now, the red hue from it can actually impact the environment, which is not anything that is needed in this case. I just thought it was cool, because of course it's only in editor mode that you would notice it. So here, so this is a good instance where it looks like it does not have a roughness map yet. And it might be because it's a transparent texture where the alpha channel is already used, and therefore you could not put a roughness map in the alpha channel. But let's check, because we might, yes, it does have an alpha portion. Dang. Okay, that's fair. That's fair, so we can't use it for that. However, we have not done energy conservation. So basically, this one's easy because we don't need to mess with the alpha channel at all. You basically go in here, and we will then go 199. And so you can just see how that darkens the texture. So let's do that again. We can also use the slider or just type it in, but I type it in. So what I do is then hit save, And I usually, oh yeah, I had it highlighted, so that didn't work as well. But basically it blends into the scene a lot better now. And that's essentially the goal, is everything is going to fit into the scene even better than before. And this does mean I have to do this manually for every single texture in the game, which is not ideal, but for me, I don't mind because I love playing this game and I love being in this game. So here's a wood surface, which actually, if we make it smaller so that way we don't have to flip back and forth, not ideal. Okay, let's close that. Actually, I'll do this on the other screen, which you can't even see. So that way you can get a good view of this wood surface. And when I do the energy conservation. Ooh, now this is also an instance where I guess I had not made a roughness map for this wood. That's interesting. I was fairly certain I had. Okay, really quick. We're bringing the Photoshop back. So to make a roughness map, because this is a surface that did not have a specular map. That happened a lot in Dark Souls 2 and Dark Souls 1. That was fixed in Bloodborne and Dark Souls 3. They had reflectance maps, shininess maps, they had all the stuff. But for Dark Souls 2 and 1, as they were PS3 360 games, which is probably going to be the title of this video, essentially broadening past the origins of it being a 360 game and PS3. That is the goal. That was my goal with Dark Souls Remastered, and that is also my goal with this, and DS2 Lighting Engine helps with that massively. Not to mention, I think we've gone vastly beyond like PS4, Xbox One level in terms of a lot of features. But geometric density is the hardest one to overcome, because that is the one that you'll notice it was made on a 360 PS3. But anyway, to make a roughness map, we have our texture here, our albedo texture. And basically, we're going to copy it and then paste it into the alpha channel. And then we invert it, and the black portions represent things that are going to be a little bit shinier. And then the white portions are the roughest portions that will not have a response. So that's how we make a roughness map. You can also do levels adjustments. You know, how dark do you want the shinier parts to be? I tend to start with just the basic copying and inverting, and then from there I'll see if there's enough of a specular response. You can also go into levels, and instead of doing the input levels, which is usually the first thing I will tweak, you can also do the output levels. So you can make the whole surface shinier. So it really depends on the surface. Now this is wood, but also it's a very moist area, so it should have a specular response, which currently it does not. So right now we're going to keep it like that, and then I'm going to do my energy conservation, which is 199. And you can basically see that, oh yeah, so actually let's go back and not do the preview. So then you can see it just darkens it a little bit. And that may seem odd, but it actually makes a much bigger difference than originally thought. So it's already set up to use the roughness map. It just didn't have one. So basically the surface was like, cool, we're looking for one, we just don't see it. So let me move Photoshop back over to this screen. And so that way when I save the texture, do you notice a difference? That's the key. Here's the NVIDIA saving of the texture. Okay, so it did make it darker, which was nice. Do we have a specular response? Not exactly, because it usually you have to get the right angle. So you can see a subtle difference when I turn on the roughness map. Basically, when I turn on the roughness map, you're actually getting a specular response very subtly. Now, I can alter that by adjusting the levels as I showed before. Oop, there's my levels adjustment, actually, even though Photoshop's still on my other screen. And basically, let's move that down and see, can we get a better response? And yes, we can. So basically you can see a much more noticeable specular sheen now that is being added to this surface where it was lacking it beforehand. And that's key. Yeah, this one I added one as well. I will show you the best example of a roughness map is not in the gutter. Although I do think it's important, and it's one of those subtle things that will build over time as more and more surfaces. I've already done it for most of the game, not all. But let's go to No Man's Wharf, where this room has the best evidence of why roughness maps are awesome. Realistically, it's also why specular maps are awesome. And it's nice when surfaces have that. So this floor surface here, let's take a look at a map object. And then I'll turn highlight selection back on so you can see we are selecting the ground. And this was a surface that had just an albedo and a normal map. It did not have a specular map. So right now we have the roughness map turned on that I generated. And then here's how the surface looked by default. Which, ignore that rock, that also has a specular roughness map I added. And basically this is how the surface looked by default. It is pretty diffuse. It has a normal map, but there's not really any response to the fire itself, as obviously this is a rocky, stony type of texture, and there should be a sheen to it. You know, and for whatever reason, Dark Souls 2, this is one they did not use a specular map on, where they did use it on certain surfaces, but just not on this one. And so when we turn the roughness map back on, we now actually get a response from the bonfire onto that surface. That is the goal. That is why we do it. And basically adding this to the rest of the game is going to just make a much more materially accurate Dark Souls 2. And that is just one of the giant goals of this mod. So I've already added these to most of the game by now. I just need to tweak them and then catch anything that I missed, which is certainly going to happen. If we walk into No Man's Wharf, I've already recorded for like over 20 minutes, so I feel like I have enough content in the video. But you know me, I like to yap. Now, one of the other benefits of DS2 Lighting Engine, like recent update to it, is it updated the water shader and the foliage shader. But the water shader now, just water looks better, basically. We still have screen space reflections that were added thanks to DS2 Lighting Engine. So you can see as I tilt the camera here, it captures everything that the planar reflections are not capturing, basically. And it merges planar reflections and screen space reflections for the best possible result outside of ray trace reflections, right? Let's light our torch and, ooh, yeah. Now this area, I've added more shadow casting on more sources. And let's kill this jabroni. Okay, bud. You poised through that. I respect that. Yeah, I forgot. This area is still a little bit hornier than my other character. So this room is a good example. He's going to break that table. You'd love to see it. I also will set myself on fire because, oh, that's combustion. Here's immolation, which is a really cool texture or a cool spell where you literally just set yourself on fire. It's pretty crazy. But you can see the shadow casting from this lantern, or whatever we want to call that, hanging something. And then I set the table to be dynamically shadow casting. Same for the bookcase, same for this table. And the actual environment itself is shadow casting. So you actually get a shadow that reaches outside of the building itself. That is all new. We have roughness maps on the interior textures and everything. So basically you get a response from the fire. Ooh, I never got this chest? Really? Interesting. Let's kill this jabroni up here. That's Carl. It's weird that I guess in this area I didn't grab a lot of the items. That's interesting. I don't know exactly why that's the case. Now, I do think, let's grab this torch pyre. Because I believe this torch pyre I have not done. Yeah, you can see on here, it actually does not have shade repair amps created for the albedo texture. Which means I have not made a roughness map for it, which is the perfect instance, because I've already upscaled the texture. They tell you when it's been overridden, so I know that I've done that. So let's grab it, and 466, 680, and we will now find this texture, which, yep, it looks like I absolutely did not. And that's how I can tell what I haven't touched yet, is generally it stands out in the environment more. Ooh, also on this wood, you can see some really bad UV mapping. Yeah, they stretch the UVs. That I can't fix currently, unless I can figure out how to get them into Blender successfully. But let me pull over the texture. Here we go. And sadly, it is using the alpha channel. So I can't do a roughness map without goofing up the transparency of the chains that you see here. If I were to do that, it will just make them black and it doesn't look great. But we can still do energy conservation. So let me go switch over to the other screen so you can see an unimpeded view of the texture here. And let me go into the albedo. You'll see my levels thing here, 199. Save it. Then, haha. And basically by doing that, you can see it now is in the environment, or it sits in the environment much more naturally, and that you're just letting, I mean, I was going to say you're letting the specular breathe, but in this case it doesn't actually have specular. This floor, I think, is another instance where I have not yet. Ideally, I should be doing each area in one sitting, because otherwise I can forget which one I have done this to. And that is a problem, but I can generally suss it out based on looking at the texture. Which, yeah, this one I believe I have also not done, which is great. This is also one where I will do levels adjustments to the roughness map itself. So I think it needs to be a little bit darker. It's actually not working. Hold on. Oh, that's weird. Okay. Let me pull over Photoshop again. Huh. Well, that's interesting. Normally that works, so I don't know why the levels adjustment suddenly oh, I get it. I get it. I forgot to do the preview option. That happens often. Yeah, turn the preview back on so you can see it as you're modifying it. So we're just gonna adjust the levels a little bit so we get the... Sometimes you're aiming to get the arrow more in the center of like this peak, but realistically you're just focusing on the dark detail that you want to be less rough versus the white area that is the roughest. So that's essentially your balance that you're looking for, and it really does depend on the surface itself. So let's go down to like 225. Let's do that. And then let's do the levels adjustment on the actual albedo surface itself, which I think just looks much more pleasant once it's been... You're just clamping it a little bit. You're just pushing that albedo down, and that has origins in the PBR rendering world. Is essentially energy conservation is what it's called. So once again, that's all thanks to Trivia, who taught me about that and how to do it. And let's go back in game, and then I'm going to, if I put it up here, you should be able to see the floor texture fairly well. And then let's hit save. Once again, by doing that, it now blends into the environment much better, and it's just a overall better, it's just a better look. And I've been really surprised by how impactful that is, and it's really putting all of these things together. I think we get a Dark Souls 2 that looks frankly insane. Like, there are obviously a lot of other Dark Souls 2 lighting engine presets that look fantastic and wonderful. There's the Faram preset that looks great. Chris Liu is doing a crazy Dark Souls 2 mod with way more new meshes and whatnot than what I'm doing. I'm focusing more on like existing assets and fleshing out what is already there. But there's so many cool things happening. Trivia is obviously doing insane work on equipment textures, environmental textures. If anything, once that's, I'll probably just add that to my description for my mod, that like if you want insane looking equipment textures, you download Trivias and you can just paste those into your text override folder. But I'm really happy with how most of the areas look in my mod now. Ooh, here's another perfect example. Okay, I was just gonna say, I feel like I'm gonna get tagged, and that is exactly what happened. Also, I realize I look like the guy that I'm summoning. I didn't even plan that, I just have the alpha set. Oh, I didn't summon the guy, actually. So here is probably one of the, also the best examples of roughness maps. So I think there's a guy hanging out in the water on the right over there. So let's snap to game camera, and it's actually this wood surface. This wood surface, the only downside is it does not have a normal map. It is just an albedo, but even with just an albedo, you'll notice an option here that's called Enable Roughness Without Normal. And so the crazy thing is that is the surface without the roughness map. It is just a flat texture with absolutely nothing going on. But when we turn on the roughness map, it's a game changer. You now get a lot more of the actual detail from the albedo, despite there being no normal map at all. It's crazy. It's fantastic. Now, of course, I wish I could add a normal map for this. That gets into more complicated stuff of trying to edit the actual model itself and then buffer layouts, and it will basically just go, we don't like a normal map. There were surfaces in Dark Souls 2 because it had Origins as a 360 PS3 title. There were certain surfaces that literally only had an albedo texture. It had no normal map, it had no specular map, it had nothing else. And that is sort of what we're fighting against. I'm hoping there's a way I can find to like add a normal map to this. I can generally edit the model, but I've had very limited success in DS2 doing any of that. And I believe it's down to buffer layouts. So hopefully that is something that I can figure out. But yeah, you can even see on this wood surface, we have a nice material response from the torchlight. And that is basically, this video is basically, if you're curious, actually, get out of here. If you're curious what I do for 10 to 12 hours a day, it's this. And so I'd like to humbly ask for your support. If you like my modding efforts, if you like to see this project, I mean, this project will continue, but obviously I'm able to work on it more and full time with your support on YouTube, but specifically Patreon. Patreon is a huge part, and it's the only reason I'm able to do this full time, is because of Patreon. So if you've made it this far in the video, please consider subscribing to my Patreon. You get Google Drive links for my mods, for all the new versions. You get ad-free versions of the YouTube videos. So you don't have to watch a crap ton of ads. You don't have to subscribe to YouTube Premium, although I think it is actually a good deal considering it gets rid of your ads on all channels. I subscribe to it. Not sponsored, but I was tired of ads and I was like, okay, you got me. But if you don't, I also make money from YouTube Premium members, so I appreciate you. They have like a pool of money from that they pay out to creators. So if you do not have money from a rich uncle, that's totally fine. I know the economy is not ideal at the moment, but if you do have the means, it would mean a lot to me, and my Patreon is in the description. And I also have a Ko-Fi link, or Coffee, because I know there are a decent number of people who do not want to do subscriptions, as we already have 5 million of them. And I totally understand that. So if you want to do just one-off donations, you can use that link, and essentially it's just PayPal. And those go directly to me, and it's super, super helpful. I can't even count the number of times I've woken up and there is just a random like $50 donation or $100 donation, and that's insane. I don't ever take that for granted because that's insane. The, like you have to pinch yourself that someone would send you money out of nowhere. Commonly I'll wake up and there's like, oh, there's a random, oh, there's a $10, there's a $5. Everything is amazing, and I appreciate it so much. So just wanted to shout that out. I need to be better. People will tell me I need to be better about saying the ways to support the projects. Oh, he is going ham. He's going hard in the yard on this guy. Also, if you have made it to the end of this video, you shall be rewarded. Ooh, look at the UV mapping on this boat. Oh my good God. Oh, I think I found a texture I haven't upscaled. Oh, that's a rarity. Yeah, I have not upscaled this texture. Oh boy. I can't fix the UV mapping, but yes, I will tell you about my next project in just a second, but I have to upscale this first. And this is also not sponsored, but I do use Topaz Labs Photo AI. I find it to be fantastic. I'm not sponsored. I will have a link in the description, which is an affiliate link. So they didn't pay me or anything for it, but I do make money if you were to purchase one of their products. I make 20%, I want to say. And I can honestly say, and if you've watched a lot of my videos, I've talked about it multiple times. They are the ones that, they are the program, the company that I use to do my upscaling. It's not to say it's the best upscaling in the entire universe. Surely there are ways to create custom models and use chainer. I found Topaz Labs to be just exceptionally consistent quality, and it's very good, and it is tunable, and it's why I prefer Photo AI to like Gigapixel AI. I find Photo AI to be a little bit more control. And so basically you pull the texture in here, you hit upscale, and by default it is using the standard V2 model, which is the preferred model for most upscales. But you do have high fidelity version 2, graphics, low resolution standard, high fidelity. And then of course on top of that you have the toggles for like how much denoising do you want. I tend to back off the denoising because I don't want to do too much of that. I want to keep the texture consistent with the original. And I think you can see here, it does a fantastic job of adding that sort of like granular, crunchy detail, but it still resembles the original texture. It is the original texture. And so I think the main thing you're looking at here is the de-blurring. That is what sort of adds. So even if you turn off all denoising and de-blurring, you can see this is the detail increase that we're getting. And that's just a 2x upscale. I don't tend to do 4x upscaling. That just alters the texture just a little bit too much, and the results I don't think are worth it. It tends to stretch it too far. But 2x is perfect. 2x is what I've done for every texture in the game. Occasionally, I've done a little bit farther on certain surfaces, but most, 99.5%, are 2x upscales. It also keeps the bod size around 10 to 11 gigabytes so far. Instead of, if I had done 4x upscaling, it would be 20, 30, 40 gigabytes, exponentially larger. So here I like to do denoising just a little bit, de-blurring, you want a little bit, and you kind of tune this for every single texture. So what I just did is what I have done for the hundreds and thousands of textures in Dark Souls 2. And that may sound crazy, and it is. So this is not bulk upscaling. This is why I prefer this method to what I originally did 2.5 years ago, where I upscaled everything in bulk. That is quicker, but it also creates more issues, worse results, and yeah, so just not ideal. So this is slower, but I'm going texture by texture. And so I've already gone through the entire game and upscaled most everything. I have missed certain things. So if we export that, and then we can see it will pop up here as the PNG. I then use Xmadhack Tools, which is a context menu add-on, and then convert to BC7 with MipMaps, which is the texture compression that DS2 lighting engine uses, which is fantastic. That's the industry standard. And then now that I have upscaled it, now I take it into Photoshop, and that is where you can see there is no roughness map in the alpha channel. So once again, I will grab the texture, pop it there, invert it. Now you don't always invert it. It depends. It depends on the texture itself. There are instances where the inverting actually makes it worse, and it makes certain things rough that shouldn't be rough, etc. It depends on the original texture. So your mileage may vary. And so I think that's a good starting point for a roughness map. We also do our energy conservation, which we drop it. Basically, we're dropping it from 255 to 199, which is minus 56, which is the space that is allotted for the specular. So that is the idea behind that. So we will now actually go back in game first, because I haven't saved the upscaling, the roughness map, any of that, or the energy conservation. None of that is applied yet, so I want to be in game when I apply that. Or no, actually, I guess the upscaling had happened because I did the DDS conversion. So don't mind the bad UV mapping, because that doesn't look particularly good. Okay, Photoshop, get out of here. Oh, so yeah, here we go. For a second, I actually clicked on this rock, and I was like, whoop. Let's see, roughness. Now, of course, the roughness can be tough to see depending on where the surface is at. If it's not near a light source, or even like moonlight hitting it, or sunlight, the roughness map will not make much of a difference, because simply where that object is. And you also have to get the right angle. And let's see if we can, yeah, okay, so here we go. So from the torchlight that's over there, okay, Bradley, chill out. You can see by turning on the roughness map, we now get a very subtle material response from that light. And that is the goal of the roughness maps. They are subtle in some cases, but not all. Oh, I missed this texture too? No shot. That's insane. That's crazy. Well, I don't need to upscale this as well. I'll do that in my own time, because I already showed that. But my next project, which will not be shocking, is Dark Souls 3. Dark Souls 3 lighting engine will be released maybe this month, maybe next month, maybe the month after that. But it is coming. Of course, once again, it's not me making it, but from all the current estimates and progress, we can expect it. I would say, I don't want to say sometime soon, but it will be something that I'll be working on very soon. Probably next month or the month after that. I don't want to have an expectation for that, because that's up to Rage and how quickly he's working, but that is what we have been told. So I don't want anyone rushing in there going, oh my god, when is it releasing? When is it releasing? I promise you I'll let you know when it comes out, because I will be diving headfirst into Dark Souls 3. I already have a Dark Souls 3 mod. I have a few of them. But this one will be 100% Dark Souls 3 lighting engine powered, through textures, parallax occlusion mapping, shadow casting, distant detail, better LODs, everything imaginable. Of what I've been doing to Dark Souls 3, I want to do to Dark Souls 3, or Dark Souls 2 to Dark Souls 3. And so that is my next project on the vision board, if you will. And so if you want to support that, Patreon, Ko-Fi, or just watching the video, sharing it, liking it, commenting, that helps a lot. YouTube revenue is a little not great. It also depends on the type of content that you're making and if they want to watch it, the whole thing. So Patreon is a much more consistent and reliable income source. But I also understand that this is a privilege in general to be able to work on this stuff and have people support me while I'm doing it. So I don't ever want to take that for granted, but I want to make sure I'm at least mentioning it for people that have the means to do that, if that makes sense. There's a lot of people who go, oh, I didn't know you had options to support you. And I go, that is because I'm very bad about talking about it. I'd also like to come up with some sort of like credits thing where a lot of channels will do, where they mention the people that are subscribed on Patreon. I got to DM some people or just kind of Google around to understand how that functions. As like, do you take names off every time? Like, because obviously I've had Patreons I've supported that I then don't always support in perpetuity. It depends on financial situations, right? So I don't fully know how that works, but I'm curious of that. I still need to work on the FromSoftServe.com. I own that, but I just haven't done anything with it. If you have any ideas for the website, leave that in the comments. I've yapped for over 40 minutes, and this is just a hangout session / here's what I'm working on. 10 hours a day. And I do apologize that does not result in as many videos, because I guess I could make more bite-sized videos of like, I added grass to this area. That could be cool, I guess. But let me know in the comments what you would prefer to see, I suppose. But anyway, this has gone on vastly too long. Thank you for watching, listening, and I will see you on the next video. I will also be streaming on Monday. Probably. I might be streaming a little bit later. I'm helping my mom with her taxes. That's a whole thing. So we'll see. But usually 1 p.m. Central Standard Time during the week, and I'm aiming for Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So that way I have days in between that I can rest and recuperate from the social interaction, since I am a massive introvert. But anyway, thank you for watching this, and I'll see you on the next one.